Australia. And the Japanese dropped this leaflet onto Pacific Islands in hopes of scaring the natives into resisting the advancing Allied armies. The Germans dropped this anti-Semitic leaflet over British lines, and believing they knew their audience, they dropped this version over French soldiers. In the sexual propaganda of the Allies, the subject was often the danger of contracting disease by associating with easy women. Training films were also being produced by American opinion makers for the troops, but sometimes it looked like the filmmakers were the ones who needed the training.
Number 1 spotted a Messerschmitt 110. The time we intercepted them, we were at the limit of our range. Gary, of course, planning the raid, had figured on that. But the result is we just couldn't hang on long enough. I think we got 2 110s. I'm not sure, but they were probable.
Very funny.
Got it!
I wonder if Harris got through all right.
Harris will get through, if anybody can.
You know what I wish?
What?
I wish I knew what the hell my next line is.
Why, you...
Say what, oh, great, for God's sake, got it!
I'd like to deadline these photo missions for noon tomorrow. You understand, Lieutenant, there's an article of war covering your conduct.
Sir, but
Not another word. I'll call headquarters. Give me headquarters.
Hello.
Right away.
Marsh, what a...
You're a hell of a colonel. Nowadays, they use the phone the other way around. Cut it.
This is where the air forces are fighting. Bases and transport routes in every center of...
on the home front, American advertising men were faced with the unique problem of trying to sell goods that couldn't be bought. With no civilian cars being made during the war years, automobile makers kept their names in front of the public by pushing their contributions to the war effort. Products that could be bought also reached for ways to tie in with the patriotic mood of the day. No one did it better than Lucky Strike cigarettes. When the ink used to color Lucky's familiar green package became scarce, the company changed the color of the package to white. The change was ballyhooed with a massive advertising campaign which declared, "Lucky Strike Green has gone to war." Who could ask more of a cigarette? Finally, the war ended, and before we knew it, we were fighting again in Korea. Even though some 50,000 Americans would die there, it was a war nobody seemed to notice. The propaganda mills were virtually silent. By the late 1960s, however, they sprang into action with a vengeance. The war in Vietnam ripped America apart, and the propaganda battles were like nothing ever seen before. The demanding Uncle Sam of World War I was transformed into a wounded veteran who wished to fight no more. This and many other anti-war posters were published by a group of 35 advertising agencies known as the Committee to Help Unsell the War. The propaganda posters that in earlier years used women to persuade the men to join in battle were now using women to bring an end to the fighting. Make love, not war, was the theme, and it would finally succeed. Despite its use in propaganda, the main purpose of advertising is, of course, to sell goods and services. As early as the 1800s, especially in Europe, some of the advertising work being done ranked in artistic quality with the finest paintings of the day. Many of these advertisements now hang in museums around the world. The great French impressionist Edouard Manet did this lithographed advertisement for a book called The Cats in 1868. And the magnificent posters of Henri Toulouse-Lautrec can still evoke the gay Paris of a bygone era. grace and beauty of the human form was a regular theme in European advertisements, especially those from France and Italy. While females were usually fully clothed in early American advertising, European ads showed no such inhibitions. Ads like these sold everything from newspapers to radio tubes. Even today, American advertising often takes a leering, teasing look at sex, while European ads for the same product sometimes take a more mature and perhaps more appealing approach. With the coming of the 20th century, the advertising poster would soon have a new companion, the highway billboard. Millions of cars were beginning to jam the nation's streets and highways, forming a massive mobile market that advertisers weren't about to pass up. It seemed that every empty space on the streets of American towns and cities was being filled in with a billboard. And in the country, the large advertising signs were beginning to block out the scenery that the automobile was making so accessible. The situation prompted humorist Ogden Nash to write, "I think that I shall never see a billboard lovely as a tree. Indeed, unless the billboards fall, I'll never see a tree at all." In the cities, billboards and other advertising signs formed a kind of visual urban blight, until it seemed that anyone who had anything at all to sell felt he had to do so with a sign that was bigger or brighter or more unusual than anything his competition could come up with. If you got it, flaunt it. It's one of the basics of American advertising, and the trend reached its outlandish peak in mid-century Los Angeles. If you have, for example, a little donut shop, what better way to let people know about it? You suppose if there were no writing on this, a reasonably intelligent person could figure out what was for sale here? Or here? Or here? For some 20 years, for some 20 years, it was considered clever to build a restaurant in the shape of what you sold. Most of this architecture never rose above the artistic level of tacky. But some of the outlandish architecture inspired by advertising became so famous that it is regarded as something approaching a national treasure. When someone tried to tear down the Brown Derby restaurant in Hollywood, there was such a storm of public protest that the Derby was preserved. It's not surprising that huge hot dogs and dinosaur-sized donuts emerged in Los Angeles. If any place knew the meaning of ballyhoo, it was Hollywood. In the 20s and 30s, just about any movie that rolled out of a Burbank backlot was brought to life with an advertising orgy known as a premiere. Stars and searchlights and limousines were all designed to make a movie an event. How many?
One thing.
Okay. Those Hollywood premieres represented one of advertising's oldest concepts, the bandwagon effect. Anyone who missed seeing this picture just wasn't with it. But the advertising campaign didn't stop there. Once they got you inside the theater, you were bombarded with the most stupendous, colossal, fantastic form of advertising ever conceived, the previews of coming attractions.
See Mighty Joe Young, enraged by Hollywood pranksters, destroy Filmland's swankiest nightclub on the fabulous Sunset Strip.
Mightier than King Kong, Mighty Joe Young.
What she saw was beyond belief until others, too, faced its hideous, uncontrollable menace. Attack of the 50-foot woman, incredibly huge, with incredible desires for love and vengeance.